Hello to all of you, and welcome to the ChildSafe podcast series. In this edition, we are discussing fire awareness and fire prevention in the sense of the mounting number of cases of preventable burn injuries that is being noticed. Joining us in our discussion today is Rayganah Rhoda from Working on Fire. And Rayganah is the Community Awareness Officer for the Western Cape, who facilitates workshops and presentations in communities and early childhood development centers. And this is to build resilient communities that are able to identify and mitigate their own fire risks. Rayganah, welcome and thank you for joining the Child Safe podcast series.
Hi, good morning, Shane. Thank you very much for having me. It's indeed a pleasure, and I hope that I'll be able to add much value to this podcast series.
Wonderful. So, Rayganah, let's go back to where you and I first had our first encounter. It was in the last quarter of last year with the disaster risk intervention in Stellenbosch, which was quite a fantastic collaboration between various stakeholders. And
Yes,
during that gathering, there was some concerning data that came up in many of the presentations. Among it is the number of injuries and also deaths related to burns, people that have, sort of been affected by fires.
yes, correct.
Tell us a little bit more about your awareness and in a prevention sense around that.
Okay. So the campaign that you actually joined in Stellenbosch on that day was called the Fire Awareness Campaign Launch. So we do that annually in October, and it goes from region to region. So we actually rotate it. So the reason why we have that is to bring on board all stakeholders that has some influence in the community regarding awareness and advocacy. So that day, as you could have seen, there is numerous partners that all share the same vision and the same goal, and that is to get our communities to take ownership of their surroundings and to also to ensure that the awareness messaging reaches the correct audience. And one of our target audience, which I am extremely passionate about, is our ECD centers. To me, it feels that we start them at a very young age, making them more aware of the environment and also the responsibility they have towards our environment to ensure that they are safe and that we have a planet for many, many more years to come. So we start off with the teachers and the principals doing a fire safe workshop with them. And then this filters down to the learners at the creche and then also the community surrounding that ECD centers. So you'll see that we have a very holistic approach when it comes to specifically our ECD centers.
Right. And of course, we're right in the middle of fire season. And I
Yes,
mean, we all see the devastation that accidental fires can cause in informal settlements and our most vulnerable communities. And I think
yes,
perhaps to just give context to our audience also is the requirements, the fire and health and safety compliance requirements that
yes.
is posed on ECD centers in terms of Section 79 of the Children's Act, where they have to get the fire safety signed off and
Compliance
the building
certificate, yeah.
safe. Oh, yes. So tell us a little bit more about your involvement in helping people become ready for that process.
Okay. So even though Working on Fire cannot issue a compliance certificate, we can definitely help them to get to that level of being compliant because we know the checks and balances, and we know the things that they come out to inspect and look at. So we cannot issue the compliance certificate. We work with them. We refer them if it's needed. Because networking is really key in any type of awareness that you do. You won't always have all the answers, but you are in a position to network and refer ECDs to the relevant parties that can assist them. So my relationship with the ECDs has come on since 2017. So we've built a really good trust between the ECDs and ourselves, and they are really the champions when it comes to ensuring that awareness is not only done at the ECD centers, but also in the community where they find themselves. So that is why I feel the program that we launch, or that we launched back then, is a sustainable program because it has been ongoing and really fruitful. Communication has been two-way, and we assist them wherever possible. We go as far as to assist them in the surrounding areas where a school needs a fire break, for instance. We will send out our working on fire team, and they will go and ensure that the ECD has a safe fire break, or that the surroundings where the ECD is clear of any fuel loads. So we really go, full circle when it comes to our ECDs, and we really, really value them because they are rearing our future environmental warriors. So it's important for us to ensure that we give it our all.
Mm. So just help us understand exactly what you mean by a fire break.
Okay, so the fire break is a defensible space, right? So it's a defensible space between that ECD and any vegetation. So sometimes it's not really the dense vegetation. Sometimes it is a open field
Mm.
that the ECD is maybe adjacent to or next to or opposite. And that field can pose a threat to the ECD if there is any fuel loads on that field. Because when the fire starts, it's not always the flames that gets to the person and causes death or so. It is the smoke that is inhaled. So the larger the fuel loads, the more smoke there will be. And as we know, smoke inhalation is extremely dangerous for anybody, especially also if you have any breathing issues. So we ensure that that field and also fire break. So a fire break can be any area that will not burn. Okay,
Okay.
so we
Like a
will
safe
clear that
space or a
area,
safer
safe
space.
space, like a safety zone.
Right.
So we ensure that that fire break or that defensible space is safe for the ECD, and
Mm.
they also use that defensible space to escape if there is a fire in the ECD or at the ECD. Then they use that defensible space to do the to use as the escape route.
And this is obviously also to do with the evacuation plan. And it's like the
Correct.
evacuation
Yeah.
point where to go.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Uh,
So evacuation is one of the practical activities that we do with the ECD. So we ensure that they practice that evacuation drill quite often.
mm,
They send me feedback, and each time when they do send it, we monitor the time it takes them to actually evacuate. So it's important for them not only to know how to evacuate, but also where to evacuate to. Okay,
right.
so your assembly point is something different to your escape route. So
Okay.
your escape route will ultimately lead you to your safety zone or your assembly point.
Mm,
And that also poses another danger for, unfortunately, to our children, because sometimes they would use, let's say, a school as an assembly point or even a neighbor's house. But now
mm,
we also need to go and ascertain, is it safe at that neighbor's house? Is that school safe? Is there any other elements that we need to take in consideration when actually identifying that safe, that assembly point? So yeah, so a lot of planning goes into actually getting a school ready for evacuation and ensuring the safety of the children as well as the staff at the school.
right. So ChildSafe also has its own innovation in terms of the blowout candle, or the
Yes,
fall over candle. I've forgotten what
yes,
the name is, the
yeah,
sand candle.
yeah,
So that is one way where one can prevent a fire, in
yes,
an
yeah,
informal space. So what
yes.
kind of tips can you walk us through in terms of an ECD
Okay,
center that can be
okay.
done to safeguard?
So the candle safety jar is actually something that I learned from Red Cross. So many years ago, I think the lady's name was Dorothy. I'm not quite sure. She introduced me to that. So the candle safety jar is a glass jar. First of all, lots of people think that they can use a plastic or any other type of jar, but it needs to be a console jar. Okay, and you fill it with sand. You cut the white candle into half and you plant it into the sand. So what this does is that in the event that this candle or this jar gets knocked over, sand will follow and immediately extinguish that flame, because any fire starts small. Okay, so if you can just picture this, a candle that is just placed on, let's say, a saucer, or just like that, onto
Open.
the table,
Mm,
and it falls over,
mm,
everything around that is combustible. The
right,
tablecloth, paper, books, curtains, everything is combustible. So immediately now you're adding fuel to that flame and it becomes bigger. And once that happens, it's almost impossible to really stop it. So that is why we have been religiously advocating for all ECDs to have this jar, and every child in the ECD makes their own jar as well. So they take back that jar to their homes, and especially now with load shedding and so, they make use of the candle, but they do it safely.
right. And so, in the event that such a fire should start, I mean, what is the advice? Somebody catches fire, what should they
Yeah.
do?
Okay, so if it is your clothing, let's say it's your clothing that takes flame, the best thing to do is to have a wet blanket or wet towel and just immediately put it around that area, and not to rip the clothes off,
Mm,
because you don't know, what's underneath that clothing and the skin and so forth. And then also to place that affected area underneath running water for 20 minutes, cold running water for 20 minutes. There are so many myths out there. People applying nugget, toothpaste, flour, eggs, all of those things, and it doesn't work. And it will only cause an infection to the skin, actually.
right,
So we encourage the ECDs, first of all, to ensure that children are nowhere near the kitchen when they are busy cooking. Definitely not near an open fire. But in the event that something like this does happen, your cold running water for 20 minutes under the tap is really the best way to try and mitigate that. And then obviously calling for help, calling the emergency number.
right. What is that emergency number? Do you guys
So
have a fire emergency number?
So we use the 112 number
Okay.
because it is a free number.
Hmm.
It's free from a cell phone. You don't even need a SIM card. You don't need airtime. And once you are put through, you get to a call center. So the trick in that is just to state your emergency. So it can be used for both fire, the police, or an ambulance. Okay, so you just need to state your emergency and also give them the more detail you give them as to the type of emergency, where exactly you are, and any landmark that will hasten up the response time to you. So, what I say to anybody attending the workshops, if you are reporting a fire, maybe tell them when they answer the call, put me through to, let's say, False Bay, or let's say Mitchell's Plain Fire Department or Sierra's Fire Department. So they escalate that call immediately there. And now, when you give them a landmark, that person will know exactly where you are.
Right. So I want us to just backtrack a little bit more with regards to preparing ECDs to be fire ready
Yeah,
in terms of those compliance standards. So how is it that we can help them to meet those compliance standards easier?
yeah. So obviously that is more of a structural nature, and we deal with mostly your wildland fires. But when it comes to the structure, we have a checklist that when we do the ECD workshops, most of the time, we have the fire department tagging along with us just to answer any of those structural questions because we know that the first 30 minutes in the workshop, everybody wants to know about compliance, everybody wants to know about, the structure and so forth. So who best to answer those questions than the fire department themselves? So they have also given us a checklist where that we share with the ECD, but we
Mm.
do make it very clear to them that we'll walk you through this, but we can't obviously issue the compliance certificate. So it has a lot to do with your entrances, your exits, you know,
Sad
getting
bucket.
into getting into the ECD, um, the burglar bars, the safety gate that they are using.
Right.
Can it be released immediately? By just a buzzer or so.
Mm.
We look at obviously the fire extinguishers. Is it expired? Does it need to
Right.
be, refilled? And also the type of extinguishers that the ECDs does have. Um, Also, another safety aspect would be the ratio of teachers to children that is at the ECD. Um, that obviously is a huge concern for me, especially when they have more youngsters there that cannot walk yet. So in an
Mm.
evacuation, how are you going to evacuate, let's say, 70 children if you've only got five teachers? And that alone, and then you also have compliance in terms of the cooking equipment that they are using. Is the electrical certificate up to date? Has it been done by somebody credible? So there are so many factors that they actually look at. And yes, it does seem like, such a long list, but it is really there for the safety of everybody that is
Right.
at the center, and especially the children at the center.
You mentioned such a crucial thing that I don't think people normally think about is that ratio between teacher and child and what to do in the event of emergency,
Yeah,
especially fires. Uh,
yeah,
because you're quite right. There's different age groups. There's 0 to 2, there's two
yes,
to three, and then there's the 4, 5, and 6-year-olds. Those are
yeah,
probably, I mean, all of them are at risk. But what do you do
yes,
with the
yes,
babies?
yes. Yeah, so especially with one of the ECD centers that we were at, I think they were in Worcester. And I saw this to be a huge risk. And I
Mm,
actually questioned them. I don't want them to feel afraid when we come. I want them to feel
mm,
at ease and know that we are there to assist and
mm,
not to go and report them. Obviously, if it's something really bad, we need to report it.
mm,
I saw a lot of babies there, and I asked them, so when you're going to evacuate, how are you going to evacuate all of these babies at the same time? Because remember, it takes 90 seconds for one shack to burn down.
right.
So the heavier the fuel load, the quicker and more intense that fire will be. And they looked at me and we did a fire drill and we timed it and it was like 12 minutes, which to me is very long.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, how are we going to improve this? We need to improve this. And the next time I got there, they were very chuffed with themselves because what they had done was the cots that they had at the ECD, they actually installed some wheels under it.
Mm,
So having wheels under the cot, they could now put 4 or 5 babies into the cot. And
right.
now one person evacuating 5 instead of 2. So
Right.
that improved. But then we also had to look at the ramp at the
Mm,
ECD,
mm,
because no use you're going to have something with wheels, but you don't have a ramp. How are you going to get them,
yeah.
you know, So when we assisted in that, we had a look at that. Our firefighters assisted them in that as well. So each time you went there, they had placed something else in place, to improve the situation.
Progressive improvement. Okay.
So that is what is very important and very crucial is the impact assessment that after
Mm,
your workshop, you need to conduct
mm,
because you now need to go and see what have you actually put in place that you have learned from the workshop. And if there really is no improvement, we need to ascertain why. Is there really risks that cannot be removed or reduced?
mm,
And are there risks that will continually be mitigated?
mm.
Yeah, so it is a process and it is a lasting relationship because it's not a hit and run, I would almost want to say, where
Sure.
you do your job and you leave. No, it's about building a lasting relationship and for them to entrust you with the information that you are sharing and knowing that it comes from a good place and it's there for getting them to be compliant and also to keep them safe.
Right. Thank you very much, Rayganah, for your insights in this, and also for the work and the first responders that go out and do this important, life-changing, life-saving work. Um,
Yeah,
and we hope to have you back again soon to come and give us
definitely.
some more tips in terms of fire prevention. And then for the rest of you out there, if you enjoyed the content of this video and would like to see more of it, please click the like, share, and subscribe button so that you don't miss out. If you happen to stumble across a donation button, hit that donation button because the
Yes,
work we
please.
are doing here is very important and it can't be done without your support. Until next time, thank you for your time. Take care.
Thank you so much. Bye.